And welcome to episode 58 of the TechnoBuffalo Show. I'm one of your two hosts for today, Sean, editor-in-chief of the site. And I'm joined by Deputy Managing Editor Todd Hazelton.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing this week, Todd?
I'm good.
That is a good thing. So not a whole lot going on this week, but we are, of course, heading into a lot of things happening. Big one being next week. We assume, still, folks, we have to just assume because we don't know for a fact that the Galaxy S6 and the S6 Edge Plus Boogaloo, whatever they're calling it, will be. Todd, we cannot hear you. You've muted your mic somehow. I see the little mute symbol on you. But so while we're waiting for Todd to learn technology and unmute himself, so yeah, we've got a lot going on next week for sure. And then, of course, we're going into September, which is traditionally iPhone month. So there will be a lot of stuff upcoming. And okay, there he is. So yes, as I was saying, a lot of stuff coming up. But right now, I know, Todd, you wanted to, and folks, this is not an official review yet. He's working on that, but I know you had some comments you wanted to make about the Moto G.
Yeah, we talked about the Moto G last week, and I have it here still, and I'm seriously loving it. It's crazy. $189 start price, but I have the 16 gig model with 2 gigs of RAM, so I think it goes up a little bit, a little over $200. But it's crazy. I was using the Galaxy S6, and I like that a lot, but the battery life wasn't great. The battery life on this is a little better. I've seen reports online saying, like, it's amazing, and I wonder if they're using it as a daily driver, which I am now. And, it plays all the games. I think last week I said I wanted to play Vainglory on it. I have been. So even though it's got the Snapdragon 415 or whatever, that it's holding up perfectly well for multitasking and everything. I'm kind of showing it to everybody. And then last weekend, I took it in the pool for fun because it's water resistant. I was taking some pictures underwater. It was perfectly good there too. The only thing, I guess, and I had mentioned this last week too, is you really got to make sure the back cover is snapped on. You can see I just snapped it, so it wasn't just now. Before you go in the water. And really, it's IPX7 resistant, so that's typically for saltwater, so it's really not supposed to go in the pool, but I always sort of just, test these phones, take it there anyway, and try to see what we can do. And then the camera's fine. It's the 13 megapixel, same as Nexus 6, according to Motorola. It's not the best, but it's something I'm willing to sacrifice for. Everything, I've been using it on AT&T. Speeds are great, all kinds of stuff. The only thing is, and I've been using it pretty much as my daily driver, actually entirely as my daily driver. Last night, I put my SIM into the Nexus 6 because I got into the Project Fi program finally. So that's coming soon, and I just wanted to sort of get used to Nexus 6 real quick again, get all my apps back on there. I had to update it to Android 5.1.1 manually, so I was flashing that last night. So doing lots of nerdy stuff. But then I'm going to put it right back in the Moto G, I think, and use Project Fi on that. I'm really loving this phone. I can't believe it costs that much. I mean, you can sort of get it because it's plastic and the screen's 720p, and you're like, oh, it's not the best, but I don't know. I have really no complaints with it.
And what's the screen size on the G again?
That's a good question. I don't know it off the top of my head. I want to see something like 4.7, maybe larger.
Yeah, that's my.
It's great.
My father's finally getting a smartphone, and so we got him a 5S refurbished. Mm-hmm. And I was setting it up for him the other day. I was like, how did I ever do this? It is so tiny.
It's so small. Yeah, I did have to get used to that a little bit, but I was coming from the Galaxy S6, which is fine. I'm going to look up that.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, because I'm curious too, and
I'm going to England again, and as I've discussed on this show many times, I get a SIM while I'm over there from 3, and so I'm thinking, depending on the screen size, this might not. I mean, my Mega 6.3 is getting pretty old at this point, So I'm thinking maybe I pick up a G and make that my
your travel phone.
My travel phone.
It's great for travel, and I think even like I've found even at home here. I'm trying to find this spec real quick.
Yeah, because about the only thing I really do when I'm out and about is like Google Maps. If I need to make local UK calls, or local UK texts and so on.
Right.
So I'm just curious. And with Google Maps, you do want a decent screen size so you can read it.
Yeah, so you're not like panning in all the time and all that.
Exactly.
Where I'm trying. The problem is you write up so many leaks ahead of time that you're sort of like, my brain is going to the leaked specs, and I'm like, was that the final spec?
Yeah, no, I fully understand. I could just go to the product page on TechnoBuffalo.
That's what I did. That's what I just brought up. So I'll have it in just a second here. It's 5 inch, I'm sorry, and it's the same as last year. So I guess that's funny. Here I am saying like it must be 4.7. That would feel really small to me these days.
Yeah.
On a time, 5 inches were huge phablet things, and this feels tiny. But
yeah, exactly. But speaking of phablets, so we're hearing all these rumors about the Galaxy Note 5, which we presume is being announced next week. The big one, of course, this week was the rumor that it's not going to have a removable back, so no removable battery and no micro SD support. Yeah,
and that's kind of a bummer to me. I mean, sort of, because if you look at it this way, it's just they offer enough storage. I'm assuming they're going to go up to 128. So if you need the storage, fine, get it. But I think in the past, Note users have sort of been those power, take everything with you kind of users that always, like, I had a taxi driver once, and we were talking about podcasts actually, and he told me he was a tech fan, and he introduced me to the brand Anchor, which we both love for batteries. But the gist of the story is he carried this extra battery in his wallet all the time for his Note. I think it was a Note 2 at the time. And then I started doing that too. And so you have these fans that do that, and sort of that's the attraction to the Note. And now Samsung's kind of pulling that away. And I think that's kind of...
I forgot to turn off my air conditioner, so give me a moment. Just
keep continue. Yeah, so I think that's the thing that's crazy to me, is that in the past, you have the Note users that wanted the battery, wanted expandable storage. And, for the same thing, the market for the Galaxy S5 and that was the same. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, Samsung's ditching that. But I feel like one place they should have kept it's probably the Note. Except I guess the trade-off I'm sure that Samsung will use in its speech is like, oh, well, we wanted to go for this industrial design, and people aren't saying they want expandable storage anymore, and et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at what HTC has done, they have a metal design. They're able to slide a micro SD card slot in there, no problem. And then I think maybe it's ignorant to say that people don't want the removable batteries and the micro SD, because Samsung's Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge sales weren't where they wanted them to be. So is that the right path that they're going down? And did they make another mistake here? As they admitted in the past, they've made mistakes sort of with budget materials. But, this phone was probably in development long before they knew what their Galaxy S6 sales were going to look like.
Well, here's what I was wondering, though, because, OnePlus is saying that NFC wasn't that important because that many people don't use it. But, people such as us and our listeners, we all felt that was important.
Right.
So the question is maybe, are we overestimating the importance of micro SD?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases we are. On the M9, the Nexus 6, the Galaxy S6, for the most part, I don't really worry about it. But on this phone, the Moto G, I value it because it only has 16 gigs of storage. So that's going to take the bulk of my apps, because when you store your apps, the bulk of it's on the local storage. And then micro SD, I can just, jam up with all the offline videos and music and stuff like that. But you'd run out of space pretty quick, at least I would, with 16 gigs of storage. That's not enough for me.
16 gigs of storage, once you consider the size of the OS, is nothing.
Yeah, there's like 9 gigs usable or something. But thankfully, Samsung's not going to have I doubt, a 16 gig Note 5. So it'll be probably 32, 64, 128 again. 32, you're in a little better place, I think. You can get your apps there, and then you can store some music and stuff like that. And again, these days, in the thinking for all these manufacturers is that everything's in the cloud. So you save a couple albums offline, but you don't need your whole library offline, because anytime you have a connection, then you're good to go. Yeah, I'm with you. I like to save huge amounts of music offline because I don't know what I want to listen to on a flight, or I don't know what I want to listen to on the subway.
Exactly. Yeah, and people, oh, why do you take everything with you? I don't know what mood I'm going to be in from
Yeah,
moment to
that's the
moment.
thing. Exactly. You're like, well, what if I want to watch this movie at that point? I don't know. Maybe I'm not
Yeah,
going to feel like a comedy.
and that's why my 32 gig iPad is starting to drive me nuts.
Mm,
Because at most with my apps on there, I get like 3 movies onto the thing.
right.
So I try to put them on there like at the last second because I'm like, okay, what mood am I in at this very moment?
Right. Yep. I'm the same way with everything. Apps, like games, I have different. Like, what if I feel like a puzzle game, or what if I feel like an RPG or something? I mean, I like to have as much on the phone as possible, but sometimes it starts to slow it down, which gets annoying.
No,
But, yeah.
that's why I still like iPod Classic.
Mhm.
All my music's on here, all my podcasts are on here. And it's great. I can take everything with me and listen to it anytime I want, anywhere I want.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think what I think is happening with the micro SD thing, and this is pure speculation. Well, if you think you need that much storage, we probably should get you into this phone. Yes, it costs more.
Right. Right.
And the price is far more than it would cost you to buy a micro SD of the same size.
Right. Exactly. That's the thing. Micro SD cards are so cheap now, especially if you want to get a 64 gig. It's like probably 20 something bucks, maybe cheaper or something.
Right. And we finally see the 128s are dropping.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I think that this is somewhat of a little bit of a scam by the companies. And again, this is all speculation and just me speaking out of turn as I usually do. But it's just beginning to feel. And of course, they can also look at Apple and go, well, you guys let Apple get away with this.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. But it's not that we're letting Apple get away. It's that Apple never gave us the choice. Yeah. And I think that some people might have. I mean, you have to wonder how many people were sticking with Samsung or these other makers because of micro SD removable battery. I mean, that's a big argument when you go into any Android versus iOS argument. Is that, oh, well, I can do all this with Android, and then some of it's now sort of being taken away.
Yeah. Well, we have a question from Sachin Bahal. Is the Galaxy Note 5 worth it, even if it doesn't have a micro SD card slot and removable battery? As I always say with any time I get a question about, should I get this phone? Should I get that phone? And so on. Mm-hmm. It's totally up to your use case situation.
Yeah.
I think once you decide on your OS, if you decide on iOS, you have a whole plethora of choices. But if you decide on Android, just go into the store, see if it feels good in your hand. Does it do everything you want? Weigh the pros and cons for yourself. We can say all day long, this phone's better than that phone, but it may not be the better phone for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And
like I would tell most people right now, if you're getting an Android phone, look at the G4 and the S6 probably right now. That's what I would say. But for me and for some people, now I would probably say, well, maybe also look at the Moto G, which is not a phone I expected to fall in love with as I have. So really, yeah, it does. It depends on your use case, what you want, and what the phone can do. This goes back to last week too. This doesn't have NFC, so I actually went to go pair it with my speaker recently, and I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't have NFC, and I was kind of bummed by that. But
But in a $189 phone, you can kind of expect that.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And it doesn't have wireless charging. I didn't pay for that. So
yeah, exactly.
And this is a review, and I should be fair. I didn't pay for this phone at all. But
yes. But I don't know. It's interesting. I think that at some point the phone manufacturers are going to have to realize also that they can't continue to charge us what they've been charging us.
Yeah.
The prices.
I think that's starting. I think we're starting to see that. Like these
$100
phones are dropping in price. Even look how quickly now T-Mobile just discounted. I don't know if the story's up on the site yet, but just discounted the S6 and the S6 Edge by like $100 and $200. So the 32 gig, 64 dropped by $100, and the 128 models dropped by $200. So actually, if you're on T-Mobile or shopping for a phone, you go there, and it's, I want to say like something like $580 for a 32 gigabyte phone, and then 64 and 128 are priced the same. So you should definitely go with the 128 because they dropped the price of 128 by 200. Which is incredible. So there's no point to buy the 64 gig byte model.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think we're going through a transition period in phones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm going to be really interested to see where we are probably in like 2 years, because 1 year, you know, the stuff that's coming out over the next year is all set already.
Yeah. The problem with, and you know, I guess it's our responsibility to help tell this story, is that I remember when people are like, should I get the new iPhone or should I get last year's model? Because the new one's $200 and that's way too expensive. I'm just going to spend $100. And it's crazy to me that people don't realize they're buying these full-fledged computers that are worth $900, right? All right, it costs the company 200 something to build it, but the fact is, it's still a very expensive product, no matter, you know, who built it or what it is. And so that's going to be a tough pill for some people to swallow when they don't understand the whole contract thing isn't there, and maybe they just buy this unlocked phone, but it's $400 and it's still not the best out there. Like, they're used to spending $100 for the second best or $200 for the best, and here we are, you know, just not paying any subsidies. But I think that's the issue that carriers and, you know, consumers are going to come up against the United States, even though it's better for everybody. Lower cost service. You're not stuck in some contract. You can move around carriers. You can switch your phone whenever you want. You know, buy a new one if you want to, or sell this one, etc.
I really wonder, though, how many people switch carriers all that often.
Yeah, probably not that often, but you have at least the choice. Mm-hmm. Whereas, you know, there's people who are like, oh man, like I still have another year stuck. Like, I have a buddy who last summer went in the pool with his iPhone and used his mom's upgrade at Verizon, right? Because he's on the family plan and there was an upgrade available, and he's like, I'm taking hers so I don't have to pay out of, you know, wazoo for another iPhone. So he used her upgrade and got a phone. And now this year he was going to use somebody else on his family plan's upgrade, and of course he can't because his mom wants that, and he's now stuck with Verizon for at least another 2 years from last year. So another 1 year. And like, you get into this forced cycle of upgrades and sticking with a carrier, and I feel like I'm like T-Mobile's CEO right now, but it's true. It's kind of like you're just sitting there waiting until you can buy another phone that's not going to cost you $900, where, you know, you don't have to.
I'm sorry, Todd. We will never confuse you with
Legato. Like, you're tied down with those old carriers.
Yeah, and you're wearing far too little magenta.
Yeah.
So we have took him 2 blocks to say this. Let me get through this whole thing. Okay. From Andrew Thomas, I keep seeing reports that then an iPhone 6C is imminent. The 5C was considered a quote-unquote budget smartphone because it was cheaper on contract than the newest Apple's flagship, and the 5C didn't do particularly well, if I recall. Considering Motorola's surprising unlocked price tag for the new Moto X, should Apple compete with that $400 price point for the 6C? Do you think Apple will have issues even selling its flagships at such high price going forward? Thanks, guys. Oh, boy.
Well, I think it would be wise for Apple to probably do something in the unlocked market at a price like that. But of course, you can always buy these Apple's phones, you know, off contract if you want to. It's just they're sort of marketed with, you know, depending on the carrier, either these new AT&T Next kind of plans or just regular 2-year contracts. I think it would probably be smart, though, to have an option like that. Though we saw, I guess the most recent reports are now saying second half of 2016 for the 6C or something like that. So not for, or maybe it was first half of 2016. So not half. Like in September where we're expecting the
which is going to be really weird.
Yeah.
You would think they would want to get a budget, you know, quote unquote budget phone out before the holiday shopping season.
Yeah, I think so too. But I was reading reports today, sort of Apple's share price has fallen a little bit recently, and people are worried about, you know, our iPhone sales going to start falling sort of the way iPad has. And I think, and they're looking at China for expansion, but that's where a phone like the 6C is sort of should help in China and places like that, but also here in the United States, as you do have these new competitors like the Moto G. So for example, though, in China, Huawei and Xiaomi are now, or sorry, reverse that, Xiaomi and Huawei are now the top two, Apple's in third, and those guys are selling really budget phones. So Apple does need to play in that market, but typically in the past, it's just used its older models to do so, and I don't know if that's what people want. Maybe they do. I think it's not.
I'm sorry, you lost me after you said Huawei and Xiaomi because it sounded like a Chinese sitcom.
Yeah.
I just pictured like opening credits. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think Apple does need to compete in the budget area, especially in the emerging markets. If you look at India, China, Brazil, parts of Africa.
Yeah, Brazil certainly.
That's where these companies are killing it.
Yeah, the Moto G is the #1 selling phone in Brazil right now, and so Latin America is important, India is important for all these folks.
Yeah. And if Apple doesn't get into that field, and I know they want to protect their brand image and all that, but I'm sorry, if you don't get into that arena, you're going to start to lose traction because as those markets do emerge, as they do get bigger, they're going to remember, oh, I loved my Xiaomi.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They're like, oh, I love this brand. I've been with them for a long time. I'm just going to continue buying those products. I mean, people do that with cars and stuff too.
Yep.
Like you get your first car and then you're like, oh, I love that, beater Ford I had. I'll buy a new Ford this time. And yeah.
We've got a question from Alexandre Matos, which this is funny. I was just thinking, post show, I need to ask Todd about this. I have a Samsung Galaxy S5, but I need a dual SIM mobile phone. Is the OnePlus 2 a good choice? If not, what should I buy? I was actually just sitting here going, I wonder if I should just get a dual SIM.
Yeah, dual SIM phones are awesome. Is the regular OnePlus 2, is that dual SIM here that they're selling?
I don't think so.
I think there was going to be another model with it, but I'd have to double check. Like I said, we've been covering so many phones recently. It's like, woo.
Folks, like Todd said, it's hard for us sometimes because we've gone through so many rumors for us to recall right off the top
the
of our
rumor dual SIM, and then there's always like US version, and then an international one will have it. So like we wrote up a rumor today, the Galaxy Note 5, which will be announced most likely August 13th in New York City. There's a rumor that there's going to be a Galaxy Note 5 Duos, but Samsung's almost certainly not going to even bring that up at the event. So if I was you, I might wait and try to see what they're doing with that. If the screen size is too big, then no. But
this is what I've never understood. And by the way, if you pretty much every Samsung phone that ends in Duos means it's a dual SIM. Right. So there's a lot of Duos Samsung.
Yeah. And actually, I've never had any of these phones cross my desk. Sometimes I see them at the events, but that's really it.
But you have why don't dual SIMs ever get released in the US?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I was thinking like maybe the Windows Phone ones, but no, I don't think so. Because they did like the 640 and 640 XL, but the dual SIM versions, I don't think came to the US. I don't know. I think it's in other markets where people share phones and stuff like that. But I wouldn't mind playing around with one for a bit just to see what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, now in Europe, they cross country borders like we cross state borders.
Yeah, perhaps that's a different reason. Yeah.
But, with more people having a work phone and a home phone, it'd be nice to throw two. I mean, the whole part of the reason I carry two phones is one's work, one's home, one's also Android, one's iOS. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, like say I'm going out for the evening, which never happens. I'd love to throw both SIMs into one phone and then only have to carry one phone with me.
Right. Yeah.
So
it was funny. I opened up a second line. I was like, one will be my work phone and one will be my private line, and they're both now.
It's whatever phone's handy.
Yeah, right.
Like if I need to call John about something, I'm just like, whichever phone comes out of my shoulder bag first.
Yeah, and then my Google Voice number, which once upon a time, many years ago, was my work number, is now going to be active on the Project 5 phone. So maybe that'll become my work phone. I don't even know anymore.
I didn't know you got Project Fi. Yeah, I'm really.
Oh, I got it. I got the invite when I saw it. It was like 8:00 last night.
Oh, I'm really excited to hear what you.
Yeah, because the guys in Irvine have it, but I don't know if we've covered it much out there. I know T-Mobile's not. John just did a thing, a post on which carrier should you use, and I know he has issues sometimes with T-Mobile coverage, so perhaps it's not great out there. But I think T-Mobile's supposed to be pretty good around me. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what it's like.
Well, we've got some other questions rolling in here from Morning Glory 95. So, with some leaks of the new MS Lumia 950 XL, do you honestly think that they have a chance of getting into the market in the US? They're late to the party. Well, I think
They've been late for a long time.
They've been late for a long time, but OnePlus was late to the party, and look at how much it took off. I still say the whole problem with Windows Phone is their app store. I don't care how many times they come out and say it's getting better. The mindset is there that they don't have the apps.
Yeah, but the thing is, and this will help a lot as developers make desktop apps for Windows 10 computers. They have the option to use that code to scale it, right? So they can scale as you would on your desk. It's called Continuum. You can, you drag the far corner and make it smaller and bigger, and it'll just adjust the size. And if you take, for example, on Windows 10, the Photos app and scale it down to as small as it'll go, it looks like it's about 4 inches. That's exactly what the Photos app looks like on a Windows 10 phone. And the cool thing about that is, so you could have an app like Twitter, which just released its Windows 10 app. And I'm not sure if it'll work on mobile, but ideally, I think that's supposed to be the idea, is that then all of a sudden you install that awesome app on your phone, and then if you use a feature like Continuum, and Microsoft hasn't said how the hardware will work, but the leaks for the 950 XL you're referring to have pointed to USB-C or perhaps like a wireless display technology. You then hook that phone up to a monitor, and you get the full screen experience, the exact same Windows 10 app that you have on a desktop PC, and that to me is awesome. And I think that's going to be the big selling point. But whether consumers have already sort of shrugged off Windows Phone as dead or not is, I think, the real concern. So they have to have this killer hardware. It looks like it's going to be pretty sweet. The leaks are showing the Quad HD display. I know the back was covered, but there's renders that look pretty awesome. So I think it'll be a lot about that. And if they can show you that you take your phone and you show up at any desk with a monitor, and have a keyboard and mouse, travel keyboard and mouse. I mean, those things are awesome. And you have a full computer, like that's pretty cool, or at least a pretty good experience, because Outlook is one of the ones that'll scale like that. That's a Windows 10 app. Like I said, Photos, I'd have to check on Twitter, but I have Windows 10 running on my phones, but I don't know if it's, we still have until like October, I think, until Windows 10 for phones is really ready. So they might not be optimized yet, but there's a lot of potential. At least more than I've ever seen. And the other thing is, when I talked to Microsoft in meetings about Windows 10 before it launched, they're really bullish on people making Windows 10 apps that work across them, because they've said, they have 1.5 or 1.4 billion people around the world using Windows. So that's huge. And they want developers to realize that. And so,
No, and I think that is going to be a big point for Microsoft at this point. Yeah, I don't know how often I want to just call the company Windows.
I think there was a Forbes article recently where the guy was calling it Microsoft 10.
So, I think this is good for Microsoft, but it's going to be hard for them to get over the stigma, because once a idea is planted in people's heads, it's the hardest thing in the world to get it out.
Yeah, it's BlackBerry's problem too.
Yeah. Oh no, BlackBerry has a lot of problems.
Well, they have a lot of problems, but I think one of them was consumers were like, "Who uses BlackBerries?"
Exactly. From Sachin Bahal, have any of you guys been to the Google HQ, also known as Googleplex? I never have you?
No, I haven't. I've been to their New York headquarters.
Right.
That's not the Googleplex.
I think I know a couple of the guys in Cal. I think John's been there.
Yeah, I think there was an IO up there.
Yeah, but nope, Todd and I have not been.
I have not been.
We're not cool enough. From Expatris, What do you think about the OnePlus 2 OS, Oxygen OS? You know, a lot of people were facing touchscreen and many issues before with OnePlus One. Yeah, that's a lot of the reason I'm not getting a 2.
I think going with Oxygen was probably a good move for them. I mean, I love Cyanogen, and I think that was probably a big selling point for the OnePlus One. But they said, now they have more control over the updates. They can push that stuff faster, and if that's true, and if they really do it, then that could be a benefit for end users. As for the actual experience, I haven't played with the one yet, but the gestures and stuff are still there. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah. And actually, this is our last question. You're all being quiet today. Please, if you have questions, feel free to submit them. From Sachin Bahal, how do you feel about the OnePlus 2 auctioning off OnePlus 2 invites for charity? I'm always good with anything done for charity.
Yeah, I'm always good with charity too. I think that's a cool idea. I don't know. And it seems to me weird that anybody would be against that, but
well, I think part of the problem is I
get it. You're like paying your way up the list.
Yeah, well, it's going to a good cause, so
yeah. Whatever. And the other thing is too, the first couple I'm sure will arrive right on eBay, and people will pay their way to grab those.
Exactly. This whole invite system. I have a bigger problem with the once you get an invite, you're able to invite somebody else, and that pushes people behind you down the list.
Yeah, it's like you got to go find friends that own OnePlus 2s or hang out in the forums or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very odd. I don't quite understand why they're doing it that way, but that is their right. So since we actually for once are through all the questions, although we have a lot of viewers, so please, if you have a question, ask it. We're going into the fall. I think the thing we haven't been asked about that I'm surprised about, we're always asked, what do we want to see out of an iPhone or out of this Android phone? What do you want to see out of the iPad this year?
Oh boy. I think I'm most compelled by an iPad Pro that I can use as a work machine, as sort of like that I can actually do something with. Like, I know people say you can use iPads, but for me, I have the iPad mini and I've considered a regular iPad, but I just can't really do everything that I need to do for work. If I could get a real multitasking machine, and I don't just mean 2 apps side by side, that would be probably the most compelling for me. So I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it has to have, like a desktop environment or something like that. I kind of want to see, and I don't think it'll ever happen, but how you have the new Windows 10, what are they called? Cloudbooks, I think they're called. They're taking on the Chromebooks. I almost want to see Apple go into that arena with like an affordable MacBook that's, maybe on an Atom processor, an Intel Atom processor, and has like a lighter version of OS X. Maybe I'm crazy, and I know it'll probably never happen. But that's what I mean by like a work experience, something I could do.
Yeah, the iPad is still way too much about just plain old consumption.
Yeah, because I could get a another netbook, and mine I put Windows 10 on it, and it's like not supported yet, so it doesn't even like let me get the new full version, and it's really buggy. So that was a dumb move on my part. But I kind of want like a new either Chromebook or Windows 10 light machine, and I'd like to, I guess I've already said this, but I'd like to see Apple do that.
Yeah, so would I. Well, we've got a couple of questions that have come in. Thank you, everyone. From Christopher Jimenez. Have you ever asked MKBHD to be on the show? We actually have not asked anyone outside of TechnoBuffalo to be on the show because we have a hard enough time coordinating those of us that are in TechnoBuffalo to be on the show. Maybe someday down the road, we have a very friendly relationship with him. And
yeah, I actually just met him at the Motorola event last week. It was very nice.
I know John's met him, quite often. I know they talk actually on a regular basis. I've met him at CES once or twice. Very nice guy. Absolutely no problem with maybe someday him being on the show. It's just at this point we have a hard enough time coordinating 2 of us here in the company.
And then my mic comes unplugged, and
and then your laptop went in charge this morning. From I'm not even going to try ZHIARW. Is HTC dead? Why are they so quiet? I like that.
Uh-oh, protection.
Todd, you deal with.
I don't think they're dead. I think they're quiet. I think because they sort of. I mean, they've already iterated on the phone, but I think they kind of launched something that they thought initially was going to be really great, and here comes Samsung and LG with phones that are arguably better from a lot of angles. And I don't know. I think they're upset by that. They probably sales are way below expectations, and I don't think they had anything really ready on deck to go. I mean, when you're a company like that, how do you have two flagships in development at once? Like that was their 2015 flagship. So now what? I don't know. I think that's why they're quiet. Probably going to try to build something else, but you also have to wonder, how can they spend that money? I don't think so. I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate, at least from what I've seen.
We like the folks at HTC.
I love HTC. I love it.
They make great products. We would like to see them.
The One M9. I love everything about it except for the camera. It's like really bad.
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of phones, because you know what? Phones weren't meant to have cameras.
Oh, come on. I think HTC should have done something better. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't get the modules they wanted initially or something. But
well, we have a question from Expatrius. What do you think about Nexus 5 2015? You think it'll be a hit or miss? Or as we know, there is a Moto and OnePlus is available in the same range. I don't think Google really worries about the Nexus line being a hit.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It doesn't seem like that's what they're going for. And I guess the specs we've seen for Nexus 5 2015 sound like it's sort of a mid-range phone. And you're right, probably in the Moto range. Though I don't think the Moto X Plus, or what are we calling it? The Moto X Style, Moto X Pure is mid-range. I think that's more flagship. But the OnePlus, I think they're both. I think the Moto and the OnePlus are both more powerful than what we're expecting from the Nexus 5 2015. So then we'd otherwise look at the Huawei Nexus, which I think is supposed to be larger and sort of the flagship Nexus. And I'm excited to see that. But really, I don't think we know much on them, and we won't until probably closer to the fall.
From Brazen Franco, and Brazen, we already talked about the all that stuff on the Note 5. If you want to go back and listen to the episode once it's released on the various podcast methods. But also from Brazen, is there another collaboration video with Linus coming up? If there is, I haven't heard about it. I know John and he enjoyed doing it, but honestly, John handles all the video stuff, and quite often I know about it once it's filmed. So
yeah, I was going to say, we're sort of the editorial side of the site, so we don't always know what's going on with video. Sometimes we collaborate, especially on like reviews and stuff, but we don't always know what's going on.
Yeah. Let's see. We got time for one more here from Kirayuki. What upcoming phones are you guys the most excited for, and why? For me, I would say the Moto X Pure Edition. I just really want to try that out.
Yeah, geez. I think I'm excited for the Note 5, but then I'm also kind of not excited for it because I'm one of the guys that usually likes expandable storage at that price. The Moto X is neat, but I'm not sure I want to spend that much. And the iPhone 6S, 6S Plus, I'm excited, but I really want to see what happens more with iOS 9 and what's going on with Force Touch and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. None of those phones have me like, whoa. So hopefully somebody has something a lot more exciting coming. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
kind of at the point where the S6 is pretty sweet and the G4 is pretty sweet and the Nexus 6 is pretty sweet even still. And so like, what are we going to do that really pushes this category? Because I feel like Moto X Pure doesn't really push it. The OnePlus 2 certainly doesn't push the category. So I want to see like, what's that next big step? Like who's going to do that?
No.
And it might not be until we see like the Galaxy S7 or, until next year.
God, let's not start talking about the S7.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like the S6 for me pushed the boundaries in a lot of ways. You get this super sharp Quad HD display on that size of the screen, works with Gear VR. So the Gear VR thing won't be as impressive to me with the Note 5 since it worked with the Note 4. You had the double wireless charging, so Qi and PMA. I thought that was really cool. The quick charge stuff is faster than ever. So, and the design was a big change. So for me, that was a big push. And now I feel like almost, whereas in the past the Note was the one that introduced all these new features, this year it's sort of now going to just fall in line with the S6 and look more like that with a larger display, new S Pen features and stuff like that. But I don't know. Maybe Samsung has a lot of surprises for us.
This is a question we get quite often from Sahal Raja. Why isn't John on this show? A couple of reasons. The biggest one being that when we tried to find what we thought was a good time for this show, it unfortunately is at 9 a.m. Pacific, which means he's usually in the office well before 9, but he's just starting his day, so he's got lots of calls to make, emails to catch up on, and all that sort of stuff. We don't really want to move the show later in the day because then it gets too late for the East Coast. So we're kind of in a pickle of when we record. Of course, it's not that we don't want John on the show. We would like John to be on the show, and he will be at some point. He's been on in the past, and he will be on again. It's just pretty much impossible for him to be on a regular basis. From Wayne Glassglow, and this will probably be the last question. We actually covered this a little bit a couple episodes ago. What do y'all think about Chrysler cars being hacked? Do you think it's the downfall of having that much technology in your vehicle to the point where it can potentially compromise your safety? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's terrifying, and I think the recall sort of says how huge that is, shows how huge that is. So yeah, it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. We got time for one or two more quick ones. For Manu Suresh, what was your experience with Samsung Galaxy S2 when it was released? That was actually the first Samsung phone I used, I believe.
I've used them all the Galaxies. I'm trying to remember what that one even looked like.
It was a slab. It was just a plain slab.
Yeah, but was that the capacitate or whatever it was on AT&T? Or was that the first one?
Well, no, I used the S2 and started with a C. Oh, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was
like with a metal body.
Yeah.
Was that the second gen? Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah, that was an S2.
Yeah. I loved that phone.
It was after the S2, but before the Skyrocket.
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot remember the name of it now.
Added like LTE or something. Or is that the Skyrocket Turbo? I don't remember.
The S2 was where everything went nuts. Yeah. Okay, last question. We'll go out on an entertainment question for Morning Glory 95. I think you've answered this on your website, but what do you think of the trailers of the movie The Martian? I think it looks amazing.
It's awesome.
Ridley Scott, when he is on his game, is untouchable. When he's off his game, Prometheus. It's a disaster. So I'm tentative, but very hopeful. But Prometheus. Oh.
The trailers look awesome, and I haven't read the book, but apparently that's very good too.
I've bought the book. I have not had time to read it yet.
Yeah.
It's been on my Kindle for ages now. I need to read it at some point. But I believe that is going to bring this week's episode to a close. As always, we do appreciate you joining us. If you want to find the TechnoBuffalo Show, you can go to the iTunes store and just search on the TechnoBuffalo Show and you'll find us. And we do appreciate if you rate and review us. That does help out the show. You can also find us on Pocket Casts. You can find us on RSS feeds. You can find us on the Stitcher app, which means you can listen to us anytime, anywhere. Anywhere there are podcasts, you can find the TechnoBuffalo Show. Until next week, I'm Sean Ani. I'm the editor-in-chief of the site, and I've been joined by Deputy Managing Editor Todd Hazelton.
Bye, everybody.
Till next week, take it easy, everyone. Bye-bye.